The number is staggering, $37 trillion. That is the debt owed by the United States government. This unprecedented figure exceeds the entire global economy's production from just 2 decades ago. The critical truth being hidden is that the U.S. government has no intention of paying it back. Their plan is not default, not budget austerity, and certainly not taxing their way out of this hole. Their strategy relies on devaluation, a calculated, invisible transfer of wealth that will systematically erase the debt burden by destroying the dollar's purchasing power. They are executing this strategy using the assets you least expect, crypto and gold. We are witnessing the most advanced debt elimination strategy ever conceived. The government is building a financial framework to accumulate strategic reserves in gold and Bitcoin. They are preparing to revalue these assets at exponentially higher prices to technically balance a debt that is mathematically impossible to sustain. When they revalue gold and crypto upwards, they are inherently and simultaneously devaluing the dollar downwards. Every dollar you hold loses utility. Every bond you own diminishes in real value, and your savings evaporate in real terms. You are about to endure a profound financial loss, executed legally, quietly, and completely. Most people will only realize the theft occurred after it is too late. This is debt devaluation through strategic reserve revaluation. This isn't theoretical. It is happening right now, and the pieces are visibly moving into place. The blueprint of financial erasure. To understand the current crisis, you must first understand the unique nature of government debt. Unlike household debt, governments control the rules of the currency itself. Controlling the currency grants them the power to redefine the value of the dollar, revalue the assets on their books, and make debt disappear without actual repayment. This historical pattern is known as a monetary reset. The clearest precedent occurred in 1933. During the Great Depression, the U.S. debt-to-GDP ratio had reached 40%. President Franklin Roosevelt initiated a radical move. He revalued gold by 69% overnight. Since 1879, gold was officially priced at $20.67 per ounce. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, making it illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold and forcing them to sell it to the government at the official price. Once the gold was collected, Roosevelt dramatically reset the official price to $35 per ounce in 1934. The U.S. government saw their reserves instantly jump from an official value of roughly $4 billion to $6.8 billion, creating $2.8 billion in balance sheet value from a simple change in price. Within 5 years, the real debt burden fell significantly. They cut 15 percentage points off the debt-to-GDP ratio, from 40% to 25%, simply by revaluing gold and devaluing the dollar. Americans who held dollars lost approximately 40% of their purchasing power through the resulting inflation. This template, transferring wealth from dollar holders to eliminate debt using a revalued hard asset, is precisely the playbook being deployed today. The unpayable crisis and the modern mechanism. The debt problem today is mathematically worse. The current national debt stands at $37 trillion, yielding a debt-to-GDP ratio of 132%. The annual interest payment alone is $1.2 trillion, surpassing the defense budget and Medicare. If interest rates remain at 5%, interest payments are projected to hit $1.8 trillion annually by 2027. The Treasury and the Federal Reserve know this system is unsustainable. The only remaining option is devaluation. To avoid the visible confidence collapse that simple money printing would cause, they need a sophisticated, policy-driven solution that looks legitimate. This is where Bitcoin and gold enter the scene. The U.S. government is building a strategic Bitcoin reserve. On January 23, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order directing the Treasury to acquire and hold Bitcoin as a strategic asset. The government already holds about 210,000 Bitcoins seized from operations like Silk Road and various ransomware cases. The proposed target, according to a bill introduced by Senator Cynthia Lummis, is to accumulate 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. They are quietly accumulating through seizures, fines paid by crypto companies, and potentially even government-owned mining operations, rather than massive market purchases that would spike the price. The goal is simple: acquire the assets before their announced revaluation. Assume the US acquires 1 million Bitcoin. The government will announce that for official balance sheet purposes, Bitcoin is revalued to $1 million per coin. This represents a 10x revaluation overnight. Their 1 million BTC reserve instantly becomes worth $1 trillion on the government's books. They have manufactured $880 billion in value out of thin air simply by changing the accounting price. Since the US government is the largest holder, this official reserve price sets a floor, and the market price will likely follow, climbing toward $800,000 or $1 million over the subsequent year. Bitcoin alone will not solve the entire debt crisis. The US needs a dual approach: Bitcoin for the future and gold for the past. The US officially holds 8,133 tons of gold, about 261 million ounces. This massive undervaluation gives the government substantial room for revaluation. The inevitable announcement will declare a new strategic gold price, $20,000 per ounce. This number is chosen specifically because it makes the math work for debt backing and offset. At $20,000 per ounce, the US gold reserves are instantly valued at $5.2 trillion on the balance sheet, up from $11 billion. Combined with the Bitcoin revaluation, $1 trillion, the US has generated $6.2 trillion in new balance sheet value. This doesn't eliminate the $37 trillion debt, but it technically offsets it, making the government appear solvent and reducing the debt-to-GDP perception. The theft of purchasing power. When gold is officially priced at $20,000 and Bitcoin moves toward $1 million, the dollar has essentially been destroyed. Relative to gold, the dollar has lost 85% of its value. Relative to Bitcoin, the dollar has lost 90% of its value. The loss of 85 to 90% of value against hard assets translates to the dollar losing 50 to 70% of its purchasing power against essentials like food, energy, and housing. In practical terms, if you hold $100,000 in savings today, after the revaluation and the ensuing inflationary period, which may hit 20% or more annually, that same $100,000 will only buy what $35,000 could purchase 3 years prior. You lose 65% of your real wealth. The government's $37 trillion debt remains nominally the same, but in real terms, due to the devaluation and inflation they caused, it is effectively reduced to $13 trillion. They have successfully erased $24 trillion of debt burden by stealing purchasing power from savers, creditors, and dollar holders. The timeline and global alignment. The global stage is being set for a coordinated reset. BRICS nations are preparing for a post-dollar world by accumulating thousands of tons of gold. When the US sets its strategic gold price at $20,000 per oz, it causes a global repricing. All central banks' gold reserves are instantly revalued. The sources suggest this reset is being positioned for 2026 or 2027. The 2025 accumulation phase involves the US quietly acquiring Bitcoin via strategic means and building the public narrative around gold backing. The 2026 crisis phase will feature severe debt ceiling fights and stress in the bond market to create the necessary justification for extraordinary measures. The 2027 revaluation phase is when the government announces the operational strategic Bitcoin reserve. This results in the dollar losing 70% of its purchasing power. Inflation explodes, perhaps 30% to 50% in the first year, and the middle class is destroyed, but the government's debt goal is accomplished. The winners include the government, politicians, the Federal Reserve, and early holders of hard assets, Bitcoin and gold. The losers are the middle class, retirees on fixed incomes, bondholders, and workers whose wages cannot keep pace with the hyperinflationary event. The Survival Action Plan. This is visible policy, not conspiracy. The window to prepare is rapidly closing. 1. Exit dollar-denominated assets. Bonds are death. Any bond denominated in dollars will lose 70% of its real value, so sell them now. Cash is death. Minimize cash holdings to only what is needed for 3 months of expenses. 2. Enter hard assets. Acquire physical gold, coins or bars, not ETFs. Target 10% to 20% of your net worth. Position yourself in Bitcoin before the government revalues it to $1 million. Target 5% to 15% of your net worth. Acquire productive real estate that generates income. 3. Manage debt. Pay off all high-interest debt. Keep only fixed-rate mortgages at very low rates, 3 to 4%, as this is the one debt that may inflate away. Otherwise, pay it off. For individuals, debt becomes a trap because wages do not keep pace with inflation. 4. Diversify internationally. Do not keep all wealth exposed to the US dollar. Open accounts in stable foreign currencies like the Swiss franc or Singapore dollar. Consider foreign stocks that earn revenue in non-dollar currencies. 5. Build community resilience. Focus on skills that generate value regardless of currency, such as trades, medical skills, or agricultural knowledge. Community and network resilience become vital when currency fails. Final warning. The government's choice is simple: default, which destroys their credibility, or devaluation, which destroys the people's wealth but preserves the government's power. They choose devaluation every time. The strategic Bitcoin reserve is not about technological innovation. It is a mechanism to create an asset that can be revalued. The talk of a gold-backed dollar is the justification for the massive gold revaluation. Every policy step is setting up the reset, and you are the collateral damage. You must adapt or be financially destroyed. Position yourself in hard assets now to preserve your wealth through the reset.